The fork clattered against the china plate. That was the only sound in the room. Just seconds before, my mother was laughing about her new car and my father was pouring expensive wine. But now, silence hung over the table like a heavy blanket. My grandmother, Margaret Blake, looked straight at me. She didn't look old or frail in that moment. She looked dangerous. "Avery," she asked, her voice calm but sharp, "are you still living in the house I bought you?" My stomach dropped. I froze. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at my parents. My father, Daniel, stared hard at his roasted potatoes. My mother, Laura, froze with her wine glass halfway to her mouth. Her smile twitched, then died. I turned back to my grandmother. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect them, like I always did. But I was tired. I was 26 years old, wearing a coat I bought at a thrift store, shivering because my apartment had no heat. "Grandma," I whispered, my voice shaking, "I don't have a house." Grandma's eyes narrowed. She turned slowly to my father. "Then where did my $400,000 go?" Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? To understand why I froze at that dinner table, you have to understand the rules I grew up with. In the Blake family, truth didn't matter. Happiness didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was how things looked to other people. My parents, Daniel and Laura, were masters of the image. They were beautiful people. My father was tall and always wore suits that cost more than my car. My mother was slim, blonde, and always smiling, but her eyes never smiled. Her eyes were always scanning the room, checking for dust, checking for flaws, checking to make sure I wasn't embarrassing her. I was the flaw. I wasn't shiny like them. I was quiet. I was awkward. And as I got older, I became the one thing they couldn't stand. I was struggling. They called my struggle a lack of ambition. They called my poverty a lesson in character. While my grandmother, Margaret, was traveling the world or managing her business empire, my parents were living off the allowance she gave them and the salaries from the jobs she arranged for them. They lived in a big house in a gated community. They drove luxury cars. They went on vacations to Italy and France. And I lived in a basement apartment that smelled like mold. Let me tell you about my life before that Christmas dinner. I was 26 years old. I worked 2 jobs. By day, I was a receptionist at a dental office. The pay was low, but it was steady. By night, I waited tables at a diner on the edge of town. I was tired all the time. My bones felt heavy. My eyes always burned from lack of sleep. My apartment was in a building that should have been condemned. The heating system was broken more often than it worked. In the winter, and winters in Maine are brutal, I slept in 2 layers of sweatpants and 3 hoodies. I could see my breath in my own kitchen. There was a leak in the ceiling of my bathroom. I had a red plastic bucket underneath it. Drip, drip, drip. That sound was the soundtrack of my life. I had asked my landlord to fix it 5 times. He just told me to move out if I didn't like it. But I couldn't move out. I didn't have the money for a deposit on a better place. I remember one specific Tuesday, about 6 months before Christmas. My car had broken down. It was the transmission. The mechanic told me it would cost $1,200 to fix. I didn't have $1,200. I had $40 in my checking account and a jar of quarters on my dresser. I swallowed my pride. I called my father. "Dad," I said, standing in the rain outside the mechanic's shop. "I'm really stuck. My car died. I can't get to work without it. Can you please lend me the money? I'll pay you back $50 a week." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could hear music in the background. They were having a dinner party. I heard the clinking of glasses. "Avery," my father sighed. It was a sigh of disappointment. "We've discussed this. You need to learn to manage your own affairs." "I know, Dad. But this is an emergency. If I can't get to work, I'll lose my job. If we bail you out every time you have a problem, you'll never learn resilience," he said. His voice was smooth, calm, and completely heartless. "Figure it out. Take the bus. Walk. It builds character." He hung up. I found out later, through a social media post, that my mother bought a $1,200 handbag that same afternoon. She posted a picture of it with the caption, "Treating myself. #blessed." That was the reality of my life. They had money for handbags. They had money for wine. They had money to remodel their kitchen because My mother didn't like the shade of white on the cabinets. But they didn't have a dime to help their daughter get to work.
So I stopped asking.
I stopped hoping. I just survived. I took the bus. It added 2 hours to my commute every day. I got thinner because I was skipping meals to save money for the car repair. I stopped buying new clothes. The coat I wore to Christmas dinner was bought at a Goodwill for $8. It was a men's coat, a bit too big in the shoulders, but it was made of wool and it was warm. When the invitation for Christmas dinner came, I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in my cold apartment, eat a frozen pizza, and sleep. But you don't say no to the Blakes. Especially not when Grandma Margaret was coming. Grandma was different.
She was intimidating, yes.
She was a billionaire who had built her company from the ground up. She was tough, but she wasn't cruel. She lived in Europe most of the year, so I didn't see her often. She sent cards. She sent gifts.
Wait.
The gifts. Every birthday, Grandma sent a card. Inside, she would write, "I've sent a little something to your parents to pass along to you. Buy something nice." I never saw those gifts. Not once. When I was younger, I asked my mom about it. "Oh, Grandma is just confused," Mom would say, waving her hand dismissively. "She forgets she didn't actually send a check. She's getting old, Avery. Don't bring it up. It embarrasses her." So I never brought it up. I assumed my grandmother was just a forgetful old woman who meant well, but didn't follow through. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to know she thought of me. That Christmas, I took the bus to my parents' house. I had to walk the last mile because the bus didn't go into their wealthy neighborhood. It was snowing. The wind cut through my thrift store coat. My boots had a hole in the sole, so my socks were wet and freezing. I arrived at their front door shivering. The house was glowing with golden light. There was a wreath on the door that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I knocked. My mother opened the door. She didn't say hello. She didn't say Merry Christmas. She looked at my coat. Her lip curled up in disgust. "Avery," she hissed, "you look like a homeless person. Take that thing off immediately. Put it in the mudroom closet. Do not let Grandma see you wearing that." "It's cold, Mom," I said, stepping inside. The warmth of the house hit me, and it felt like heaven. "You're late," she snapped. "Go fix your hair. You look messy. And for God's sake, try to smile. We're having a nice family dinner. Do not ruin this with your depressing attitude." I went to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. My skin was pale. My eyes had dark circles underneath them. I tried to smooth down my hair. I tried to pinch my cheeks to make them look pink. I looked at the woman in the mirror, and I felt pity for her. I felt weak. Why did I come here? Why did I let them treat me like this? Because I wanted a family, even a fake one. I wanted to sit at a table and eat hot food. I wanted to pretend, just for a few hours, that I belonged to people who loved me. I walked into the dining room. The table was set perfectly. Crystal glasses, silver forks, white linen napkins folded like swans. A massive roasted turkey sat in the center. Grandma Margaret was sitting at the head of the table. She looked regal. She was wearing a dark green velvet dress and pearls. Her hair was white and perfectly styled. When she saw me, her face lit up. It was the only genuine smile in the room. "Avery," she said, "come here, darling." I went to her. She hugged me. She smelled like expensive perfume and peppermint. Her hands were warm. "You're so thin," she said, pulling back to look at me. Her eyes were sharp, scanning my face. "Are you eating enough?" "I'm fine, Grandma," I lied. "Just busy with work." "Sit," she commanded.
"Eat."
I sat down. My father was pouring wine. He didn't look at me. He was too busy trying to impress his mother. "So, Mother," he said, his voice loud and booming, "how is the business in London? The stocks are doing well, I see." He wanted to talk about money. He always wanted to talk about money. My mother was serving potatoes. "Yes, and did you see the photos of the new garden I sent you? We've really upgraded the landscaping this year." She wanted to talk about appearances. I sat there, silent. I was hungry. I ate the turkey. I ate the potatoes. I drank the wine. It was a good wine. It warmed my chest. For a while, the conversation was normal, just boring, rich people talk. My parents bragged about their friends. They bragged about their trips. They bragged about how hard they were working, which was a lie. I just listened. I made myself small. I tried to be invisible. Then the conversation shifted. Grandma put down her wine glass. She looked at me with a soft expression.
You know, Avery, she said.
I was so happy when your father told me you finally moved in. I've been waiting to hear how you like it. I looked up confused. Moved in where? My father dropped his fork.
It
Made a loud clatter. My mother stiffened. Grandma continued, not noticing their reaction yet. The house, dear. The house I bought for you. And that brings us back to the moment the world stopped. The moment the silence became a physical thing, pressing down on my chest. The fork on the plate. The stare. The question. Avery, are you still living in the house I bought you? The silence stretched. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. It felt like an hour. My brain was trying to process the words. The house I bought you. What house? I looked at my grandmother. She wasn't senile. She wasn't confused. Her eyes were clear and intelligent. She was waiting for an answer. She expected me to say, "Oh yes, Grandma, it's beautiful. I love the kitchen. The garden is lovely." But I couldn't say that. I am a bad liar. My parents are great liars, but they never taught me how to do it properly. My voice caught in my throat. I coughed. My father, Daniel, suddenly laughed. It was a loud, barking sound that didn't match the quiet room.
Huh.
Oh, Mom, you know how Avery is. She's a joker.
He looked at me.
His eyes were wide, pleading, but there was anger behind the pleading. His eyes said, "Shut up. Play along. Don't you dare ruin this." My mother chimed in, her voice high and tight.
Yes.
Avery is just being modest. She loves the place. She's just overwhelmed by your generosity, Margaret. They were doing it. They were rewriting reality, right in front of me. They were building a wall of lies to hide behind. But Grandma Margaret didn't laugh. She didn't smile.
She didn't look at them.
She kept her eyes locked on me. "Avery," she said again. Her voice was softer now, but heavier. "Why did you say you don't have a house?" I gripped the edge of the table. The linen tablecloth felt rough under my fingers. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. If I told the truth, I would destroy them. I knew that. If I said the words out loud, my parents would be exposed. They would hate me. They would scream at me later. But then I thought about my apartment. I thought about the bucket catching the leaks. I thought about the cold wind coming through the window I had taped shut with duct tape. I thought about my dad telling me to walk to work because walking builds character. And then I looked at my mother's diamond earrings. They sparkled in the candlelight. Something inside me snapped. It was a quiet snap. A tiny thread of loyalty finally breaking. "I don't have a house, Grandma," I said.
My voice was steady this time.
"I live in a basement apartment on 4th Street. I rent it. It costs me $800 a month." My mother gasped. It was a theatrical sound. "Avery, why are you lying to your grandmother?" She turned to Grandma, reaching out a hand to touch Grandma's arm. Grandma pulled her arm away. "She's confused, Margaret," Mom said, speaking fast. "She's been working so hard lately. She's not herself." "I am myself," I said.
I didn't yell.
I just spoke. "I have never owned a house. I have never seen a house. I didn't know you bought me a house." Grandma's face changed. The warmth vanished. The confusion vanished. It was replaced by something cold and hard. She looked like the CEO she used to be. She looked like a woman who fired people for incompetence. She reached into her purse, which was sitting on the floor beside her chair. She pulled out her phone. She tapped on the screen a few times, then turned the phone around to face my father. "Daniel," she said, "look at this." My father looked. He swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. "This is a photo you sent me 3 months ago," Grandma said. "It is a photo of Avery standing in front of a beautiful blue cottage near the lake. You captioned it, 'Avery moving into her new home. She is so happy.'" "Thank you, Mom." I leaned forward to look at the screen.
It was a photo of me.
But it was from 5 years ago. We were on a family vacation, one of the few I was allowed to go on. We had rented a cottage for a week. I was smiling in the picture because I was 21 and naive and happy to be included. "That's from the vacation at Lake Winnipesaukee," I said. "That was 5 years ago." Grandma turned the phone to my mother. "And this email? From you, Laura. Dated last January. The renovations on Avery's house are complete. We used the extra 50,000 you sent for the roof repairs. It looks perfect. My mother's face went pale. She looked like a ghost. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I sent $400,000, Grandma said. She wasn't shouting.
She was stating facts.
I sent it to the family trust account with specific instructions that it was for Avery's first home. I wanted her to be secure. I wanted her to have a start in life that I didn't have. She looked at me. You never got it? No, I whispered. You never got the keys?
No.
Did you know about the money? No. Grandma closed her eyes for a moment. She took a deep breath. When she opened her eyes, they were wet, not with sadness, but with fury. Where did the money go? She asked. She looked at my father. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead with his napkin. Mom, please. Let's not discuss finances at the dinner table. It's Christmas. Where did the money go? She repeated. Louder. We invested it, Daniel stammered. For her. We were protecting her investment. The market is volatile. We thought it was better to keep it in the main account until she was older. Until she was ready. I'm 26, I said. When was I going to be ready? You can't even keep a car running. My mother snapped at me, suddenly vicious. She turned her fear into anger and aimed it at me. Look at you. You're a mess. If we gave you a house, you'd probably let it fall apart. We were being responsible parents. Responsible,
Grandma said.
She stood up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. You told me she was living there, Grandma said. You lied to me. For a year. We didn't lie, Mom cried, tears starting to stream down her face. Fake tears? Real tears? I didn't know anymore. We considered it her house, legally speaking, eventually. We were just waiting for the right time. And the renovations? Grandma asked. The roof repairs? The $50,000? Silence. I noticed you remodeled your kitchen this year, Laura, Grandma said. Her voice was like ice. It looks very expensive. My mother looked down at her plate. And Daniel, Grandma said. That new Porsche in the driveway. A lease? Or did you buy it? My father didn't answer. Grandma looked around the room. She looked at the expensive paintings on the walls. She looked at the crystal chandelier. She looked at the abundance of food on the table. Then she looked at me. She looked at my thrift store coat hanging in the hallway. She looked at my scuffed boots. She looked at my thin face. You have been living in luxury, she whispered. While my granddaughter lives in... She stopped. She turned to me. Where do you live, Avery? The basement apartment on 4th Street, I repeated. Is it safe? Not really, I admitted. The lock on the front door is loose. And the heating doesn't work well. Grandma let out a sound. It was half gasp, half sob. She picked up her cane. Get your coat, Avery, she said. Mom, sit down, my father shouted. He stood up too. He was big, and he used his size to intimidate people. He loomed over the table. You are making a scene. We can explain everything in the morning with the accountant. You are misunderstanding the tax implications. I am not talking to my accountant, Grandma said. And I am not sitting down. She walked around the table to where I was sitting. She put a hand on my shoulder. We are leaving, she said. Where are you going? My mother shrieked. We haven't had dessert. I have lost my appetite, Grandma said. Avery, take me to your apartment. You can't go there, my father yelled. It's a dump. You'll hate it. If it is good enough for my granddaughter, Grandma said, her voice shaking with rage, then it is good enough for me to see. She pulled me up from the chair. Drive me there, she told me.
Now. I
don't have a car, Grandma, I said softly. I took the bus. Then I walked. Grandma froze. She looked at my wet boots. You walked, she whispered. In the snow? I nodded. She looked back at my parents one last time. The look she gave them was final. It was the look of a bridge burning down. Call a taxi, she ordered my father. Mom, call a taxi, she screamed. It was the first time I had ever heard her raise her voice. It echoed off the high ceilings. My father scrambled for his phone. His hands were shaking so badly, he almost dropped it. My mother sat in her chair, weeping into her napkin. This is all your fault, she hissed at me through the linen. You ungrateful little brat. You ruined Christmas. I looked at her. For the first time in my life, her words didn't hurt. They just felt empty. I didn't say anything, I told her. I just told the truth. Grandma took my hand. She squeezed it tight. Her grip was iron. Come, Avery, she said. We are done here. We walked to the door. I put on my old, oversized coat. Grandma put on her fur coat. We stood on the porch, waiting for the taxi in the cold night air. The door to my parents' house closed behind us, shutting out the warmth and the light. But standing there in the cold with my grandmother, holding her hand, I felt warmer than I had in years. The taxi ride was quiet. Not the suffocating quiet of my parents' dining room, but a heavy, thoughtful silence. The driver, a man named Sam who looked like he'd seen everything, glanced in the rearview mirror a few times. He saw an old woman in mink and pearls sitting next to a young woman in a faded, oversized thrift store coat. He probably wondered what her story was.
He didn't ask.
He just drove. Grandma Margaret stared out the window. The streetlights flashed across her face. Light, dark, light, dark. Her jaw was set tight. Her hands were folded over the top of her cane, gripping it so hard her knuckles were white. I was nervous. I was ashamed. I didn't want her to see where I lived. It was one thing to tell her about it. It was another thing to show her. It's humiliating to show someone you love how far you've fallen, especially when that person is a billionaire. It's not a nice neighborhood, Grandma, I whispered as we turned off the main road. The houses got smaller. The streetlights got dimmer. The snow here wasn't pristine white like in my parents' gated community. It was gray slush, churned up by tires and stained with oil. I don't care about the neighborhood, she said, without looking at me. I care about you. We pulled up to my building. It was a 3-story brick block that had been built in the 1970s and ignored ever since. The front door was propped open with a cinder block because the buzzer didn't work. The hallway light was flickering, busy, casting nervous shadows on the peeling paint. Grandma paid the driver. She tipped him $50 for a $10 ride. We stood on the sidewalk. A stray cat hissed from under a dumpster. "This is it?" Grandma asked. Her voice was small. "Yes," I said. "I'm in 1B, the basement." We walked inside. The smell hit us immediately. It was the smell of damp carpet, old cooking oil, and something metallic. Grandma didn't cover her nose, but I saw her nostrils flare. We went down the half flight of stairs. I unlocked my door. I had to jiggle the key just right, lifting up on the handle, or it wouldn't turn. "Welcome to my home," I said, pushing the door open. I turned on the light. It was exactly as I had left it. A small, square room. A kitchenette in the corner with a stove that only had 2 working burners. A futon that doubled as my bed. A folding table where I ate my meals. And the bucket. The red plastic bucket in the middle of the floor.
Drip.
Grandma walked in slowly. Her cane tapped on the linoleum floor. She looked at the windows, which were covered in condensation and draft taped with silver duct tape. She looked at the space heater humming in the corner, my only source of warmth. She looked at the empty refrigerator, humming loudly. She walked over to the bucket. She looked up at the water stain on the ceiling. It was yellow and spreading like a bruise. "How long?" she asked.
6 months, I said.
"The landlord says he'll fix it when the snow melts." "And the heat. The radiator works sometimes. But mostly I use the space heater." She turned to face me. In that harsh, naked light of my apartment, she looked older. The fury from the dinner table was gone, replaced by a deep, aching sorrow. "They knew?" she asked. "Daniel and Laura. They knew you lived here?" "They dropped me off once," I said. "When my car first broke down. Mom wouldn't come inside. She said it smelled like cabbage. Dad just said I should work harder, so I could move." Grandma closed her eyes. A single tear escaped, tracking through the powder on her cheek. "I sent them the money 3 years ago," she whispered. 3 years. $400,000. Enough to buy a lovely little house outright. Enough for furniture. Enough for a car. She opened her eyes and looked around the room again. She saw my shoes lined up by the door. 2 pairs, both worn out. She saw my small stack of books. She saw the painting I was working on in the corner, a canvas of a stormy ocean, painted with cheap acrylics because I couldn't afford oils. "You survived," she said. Her voice broke. "You survived this. While they bought Porsches. While they went to Italy." "I'm okay, Grandma," I said, instinctively trying to comfort her. "I manage. I have a job. 2 jobs." "You shouldn't have to manage," she cried out, slamming her cane on the floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the small room. "You are my granddaughter."
"You are a Blake."
I worked my entire life so that my family would never, ever have to live like this. She took a breath, composing herself. She walked over to me and took my face in her hands. Her palms were soft, a stark contrast to my rough, chapped skin. "They stole from you," she said firmly. "They didn't just steal my money. They stole your security. They stole your comfort. They stole years of your life. I thought you forgot about me," I confessed. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough. That's why the gifts stopped coming. Grandma pulled me into a hug. She hugged me so tight I could feel the buttons of her coat pressing into my chest. "I never forgot you," she whispered into my hair. "I never, ever forgot you. I was a fool. I trusted them. I thought they loved you as much as I do. I was wrong." She pulled back. Her face was set in stone again. The sorrow was gone. The steel was back. "Pack a bag," she ordered. "What?" "Pack a bag. You are not sleeping here tonight. Not another minute." "Where are we going?" "To a hotel. The Ritz. And then we're going to fix this." The hotel suite was bigger than my entire apartment. The carpets were thick and soft. The bed looked like a cloud. It was warm, so wonderfully warm. Grandma ordered room service. Soup, sandwiches, hot tea, chocolate cake. I ate like I hadn't eaten in weeks. Grandma just drank tea, watching me. After we ate, she didn't go to sleep. She sat at the desk in the living area of the suite. She put on her reading glasses. She took out her phone and a small notebook she always carried. "Go to sleep, Avery," she said. "I have work to do." "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway of the bedroom. "I am counting," she said grimly. "I am going through every transfer, every email, every text message from the last 5 years. I am building a timeline." I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Through the open door, I watched her. She was on the phone for hours, even though it was past midnight. She was calling her personal bankers in London. She was calling her lawyers in New York. I heard snippets of her conversations. "Freeze the accounts." "Yes, all of them. Daniel's too. Laura's too. I don't care if it's Christmas Eve. Do it. I want the deed records for the Clearwater Bend property. Yes, the one they bought last year. I want to know whose name is on it. Get Jonathan Hale ready for a meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. Tell him to bring the original trust documents." She was like a general at war. She was methodical. She was terrifying. I fell asleep listening to the scratch of her pen on paper and her low, angry voice on the phone. I woke up when the sun was coming up. The light was filtering through the heavy curtains. I sat up, disoriented for a second by the luxury around me. Then I remembered. The dinner, the taxi, the bucket. I walked into the living area. Grandma was still sitting at the desk. She was still wearing her dinner dress, but she had taken off her pearls and her shoes. There were piles of paper on the desk. She must have had the hotel business center print them out for her during the night. She looked tired, but her eyes were bright with a strange energy.
"Good morning," she said.
She didn't look up from a document she was reading. "Did you sleep?" I asked. "No," she said. "I'll sleep when this is done." She put the paper down and turned to me. "Sit down, Avery. I need to explain what is going to happen today." I sat on the sofa. "I have uncovered everything," she said. "It is worse than I thought." My stomach tightened. "How much worse?" "The $400,000 for the house was just the beginning," she said. "I have been sending you an allowance, $2,000 a month, since you turned 21. My mouth fell open. "What?" "They told me they were depositing it into a savings account for you. They said you wanted to save it for a business." "I never saw a penny," I said. "I've been working for $12 an hour." "I know," she said. "They took that too. And the tuition money I sent for your art school? The one they told me you decided not to attend?" "I didn't decide not to attend," I cried. "Mom told me we couldn't afford it. She told me my portfolio wasn't good enough to get a scholarship, so I had to give up." Grandma's hand clenched into a fist on the desk. "They lied to you to keep you small," she said. "And they lied to me to keep the money." She stood up. She walked over to the window and looked out at the city covered in snow. "I created a monster," she said softly. "I gave them too much. I made them weak. And because they were weak, they became greedy. And because they were greedy, they preyed on the one person they should have protected." She turned back to me. "We're going to the lawyer's office in 2 hours. Your parents will be there." I summoned them. "I don't want to see them," I said. I felt sick. I can't face them. You don't have to say a word, Grandma said. I will do the talking, but you need to be there. You need to see them lose. You need to see the truth come out into the light. She walked over and put her hands on my shoulders. We stop letting them rewrite your life, she said. Starting today, you write your own story. And the first chapter is taking back what is yours. For the first time in years, looking into her fierce, tired eyes, I didn't feel like a victim. I didn't feel like the poor relation. I felt like a Blake. Okay, I said. I'm ready. Good, she said. Now go shower. I ordered some clothes for you. They should be here any minute. You are not walking into that office wearing a thrift store coat. You are walking in there as the heiress to the Blake estate. A knock came at the door. A hotel staff member wheeled in a rack of clothes. A sleek black coat, warm boots, a soft gray sweater, trousers that actually fit. I dressed. I looked in the mirror. I stood taller. The clothes didn't change who I was, but they changed how I felt. I felt armored. Grandma nodded when she saw me. Let's go, she said. It's time for reckoning. The law office of Jonathan Hale was located in a tall glass building downtown. It was the kind of place where the floors were made of marble and everyone spoke in whispers. I walked in next to my grandmother. I was wearing the new clothes she had bought me, the black coat, the warm boots. I felt different. I didn't feel like the girl who lived in a basement anymore. I felt like I was wearing armor. We took the elevator to the 40th floor. My heart was beating fast, a nervous thump, thump, thump against my ribs. I was afraid to see my parents. I was afraid of what they would say. I was afraid they would somehow twist this around and make it my fault again. Grandma squeezed my hand. Head up, Avery, she said. You have nothing to hide. They are the ones who should be afraid. We walked into the conference room. It was a large room with a long mahogany table and a view of the entire city. My parents were already there. They were sitting on one side of the table. My father, Daniel, was wearing his expensive gray suit, but he looked disheveled. His tie was slightly crooked. He had bags under his eyes. My mother, Laura, was wearing big sunglasses. Even though we were inside, she took them off when we walked in. Her eyes were red and puffy. When they saw me, they both stiffened. My mother's eyes scanned my new coat. I saw a flash of jealousy in her face. So, my father said, trying to sound confident, "We're doing this here? With lawyers? Mom, this is ridiculous. We could have settled this at home." "There is nothing to settle," Grandma said coldly. She didn't sit down. She stood at the head of the table. "Sit, Avery." I sat in the leather chair next to Grandma, across from my parents. Jonathan Hale walked in. He was a tall man with gray hair and very serious glasses. He carried a thick stack of files. He didn't smile.
Good morning, Jonathan said.
He sat down and placed the files on the table. The sound of the paper hitting the wood was loud in the quiet room. "Let's begin," Jonathan said. He opened the first file. "We are here to review the misappropriation of funds from the Margaret Blake Trust, specifically regarding the beneficiary, Avery Blake." My father laughed nervously. "Misappropriation? That's a strong word, Jonathan. We are the trustees. We have discretion on how to manage the money." Jonathan looked at my father over his glasses. "Discretion does not include theft, Daniel." My father's face turned red. "Let's address the $400,000 transfer sent on August 12th, 3 years ago," Jonathan said. "This money was explicitly labeled house purchase. Avery, where is that money?" Daniel cleared his throat. He looked at my mother. My mother looked at the table. We felt Avery wasn't ready for home ownership," Daniel said. His voice was smooth, the voice of a salesman. She was young. She was struggling with her direction in life. We didn't want to burden her with property taxes and maintenance. So, we held on to it. Held on to it where? Grandma asked. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like a knife. "In our investment portfolio," Daniel said. "Safe. Growing." Jonathan pulled out a sheet of paper. He slid it across the table to my father. "This is your bank statement from that month," Jonathan said. The day after the money arrived, there was a withdrawal of $380,000. It was paid to Clearwater Bend Estates. The room went dead silent. I froze. Clearwater Bend. That was the exclusive lakefront community where the richest people in the state had vacation homes. "You bought a lake house," I whispered. My mother looked up. Her lip was trembling. It was an investment. Real estate is the best investment. We bought it so the money would grow for you. Avery, is my name on the deed?
I asked.
Jonathan answered for them.
No.
The deed is in the names of Daniel and Laura Blake. I felt sick. You told me you couldn't lend me $1,200 to fix my car, I said, my voice shaking. You let me walk to work in the snow. And you had a lake house. We couldn't liquidate the asset just for a car repair, my father snapped. You don't understand finance, Avery. That's the problem. You think money just appears. We were building equity. Jonathan pulled out another paper. And the renovations? $50,000 for a new kitchen at the lake house. Another $20,000 for a boat dock. Was that also for Avery? We had to maintain the property value. Mom cried out, "You have to spend money to make money." And the allowance? Jonathan continued, relentless. $2,000 a month intended for Avery's living expenses, transferred every month for 5 years. We used that for administrative costs, Daniel said.
He was sweating now.
I could see the beads of sweat on his forehead. Managing a trust is hard work. Administrative costs? Grandma slammed her hand on the table. You used my granddaughter's food money to pay for your country club membership? I saw the credit card statements. Daniel, I saw the trips to Napa Valley. I saw the jewelry. She pointed a shaking finger at them. You let her live in a basement with a bucket catching water from the ceiling, Grandma hissed, while you were drinking wine on a boat Doc paid for with her money. We were going to give it to her eventually, my mother sobbed. When she got married, when she settled down, we were saving it for her future. I am her future, Grandma said. And I am here to tell you that her future no longer includes you. My parents looked at each other. They looked trapped. They looked like cornered animals. They realized the lies weren't working. The misunderstanding, excuse wasn't working. Jonathan closed the folder. The sound was final. The total amount misappropriated, including interest and the allowance, comes to nearly $600,000, Jonathan said. That is grand larceny. That is fraud. My father's face went pale gray. Are you going to press charges? Grandma looked at him. She looked at her own son. I saw the pain in her eyes. It is a terrible thing for a mother to realize her child is a bad person. I should, she said softly. I should send you to jail. My mother started to cry harder. Please, Margaret, think of the family. Think of the scandal. Daniel is your son. Avery is my granddaughter, Grandma said. And she is the only family I recognize in this room right now. The air in the room was heavy. My parents were terrified. They weren't afraid of losing my love. They never cared about that. They were afraid of losing their lifestyle. They were afraid of jail. Grandma stood slowly. She leaned heavily on her cane. She looked tired, but she stood tall. I am not going to send you to jail, Grandma said. My father let out a huge breath. He slumped in his chair. Thank God. Mom, thank you. We can make this right. We can work out a payment plan. I have some stocks I can sell. Be quiet, Grandma said. She turned to Jonathan. Read the amendment. Jonathan opened a new document. It was stamped with red ink. Mrs. Margaret Blake has revised her estate plan as of this morning, Jonathan read. His voice was monotone, which made the words sound even more powerful. Previously, the estate was to be divided between Daniel Blake and various charitable trusts, with a small stipend for Avery Blake. My parents nodded. They knew this. They had been waiting for this inheritance their whole lives. The new will, Jonathan continued, removes Daniel and Laura Blake as beneficiaries completely. My mother gasped. It was a loud, sharp sound. What? You are disinherited, Grandma said. You get nothing. Not the business. Not the properties. Not a single dollar. You can't do this. Daniel shouted. He stood up, slamming his hands on the table. I am your son. I helped you run the company. You helped yourself to the company's money, Grandma said calmly. Sit down, Daniel. He didn't sit. He was shaking with rage. This is undue influence. She poisoned you against us.
He pointed at me.
Look at her. She's playing the victim. She probably planned this whole thing. I looked at my father. I looked at the man who had raised me. And I realized he didn't know me at all. I didn't plan anything, I said quietly. I just answered a question at dinner. Read the rest, Grandma ordered Jonathan. Avery Blake is now the sole heir to the Blake estate, Jonathan read. She is also appointed as the primary trustee effective immediately. This means she has control over the current family assets, including the funds you are currently living on." The room went absolutely still.
My parents looked at me.
For the first time, they didn't look at me with pity or disgust. They looked at me with fear, because they realized the power had shifted. I wasn't the girl begging for $50 anymore. I was the one holding the checkbook. "Avery," my mother whispered. Her voice changed instantly. It became soft, sweet, fake. "Avery, honey, you wouldn't let them do this to us. We're your parents. We raised you. We put a roof over your head. You put a roof over your own heads with my money," I said. "We made mistakes," my father said, his voice desperate now. "We're human, but you can't cut us off. How will we live? The mortgage on the house, the car leases. The house I live in has a bucket on the floor," I said. "I think you'll figure it out. It builds character, right, Dad?" He flinched as if I had slapped him. Grandma spoke again. "There is one more condition. The Clearwater Bend property. It's ours," Daniel said. "It's in our name, bought with stolen funds." Jonathan reminded him. "We can file a civil suit to seize it. It will take years. It will be public. It will be in every newspaper. Blake, family fraud." My father closed his eyes. He knew he couldn't handle the scandal. His social standing was everything to him. "Or," Jonathan said, "you can sign the deed over to Avery today, voluntarily, as repayment for the stolen funds. If you do that, Margaret will agree not to press criminal charges." My parents looked at each other. They had no choice. It was the lake house or jail. "Fine," my father spat.
"Fine. Take it."
"Take it all." Jonathan slid the deed transfer papers across the table. He handed my father a pen. My father signed it. He pressed the pen so hard into the paper, I thought it would rip. My mother signed it, tears dripping onto the page. Jonathan took the papers back. He checked the signatures.
"It is done," he said. He looked at me.
"Congratulations, Ms. Blake. You are the owner of the Clearwater Bend estate." I looked at the papers. I owned a house. A lake house. A house I had paid for with years of my life, years of cold nights and hungry days. Grandma walked over to my parents. She looked down at them. "Daniel," she said softly, "you let my granddaughter freeze while you drank wine on her deck." He tried to speak, but she raised her hand. "You built your comfort on her hardship," she said. "I am ashamed of you. I am ashamed that I raised a man who could do that to his own child." "Mom," he whispered.
"Don't call me Mom," she said.
"Not for a long time. Get out." "But how are we going to get home?" my mother asked, looking confused. "We drove the Porsche. It's a lease under the company name. The company cars are being repossessed today," Jonathan said. "I believe there is a bus stop 2 blocks over."
My father looked at me one last time.
His eyes were full of hate. "You think you've won," he said, "but you don't know how to handle this world. You'll fail. You'll come crawling back to us." "I survived without you for 26 years, I said. "I think I'll be fine." They walked out of the room. They looked smaller than they had when they walked in. They looked ordinary. When the door closed, the silence in the room was different. It wasn't heavy. It was clean. Grandma sat down in her chair. She let out a long sigh. She looked exhausted. "Are you okay?" I asked, kneeling beside her. She touched my cheek. "I am sad," she admitted, "but I am relieved. It is over." She looked at the deed on the table. "So," she said, a small smile appearing on her face, "you have a house now. Would you like to go see it?" I smiled back.
"Yes."
I would. But before we could leave, Jonathan cleared his throat. "One more thing, Avery," he said. "Your grandmother has also transferred the control of your trust directly to you. The back pay, the money they stole, has been replenished from your grandmother's personal account. You have access to $600,000 as of this morning." I looked at the number written on the paper. It was more money than I could imagine. "What do I do with it?" I asked. Grandma stood up and took her cane. "Anything you want," she said. "Buy a coat, buy a car, buy a painting, or just save it. It's yours. No strings, no rules." We walked out of the office. We took the elevator down. We walked out into the cold winter air. But this time, I wasn't cold. I hailed a taxi. I opened the door for my grandmother. "To the lake," I told the driver. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't wondering if I could afford the ride. 2 days later, I went back to my basement apartment. I wasn't going back to live there. I was going back to pack. Grandma insisted on coming with me. She didn't want me to be alone in that part of town, and she definitely didn't want me to be alone if they showed up. And she was right. We were in the middle of putting my books into a cardboard box. The room looked even smaller now that I knew I was leaving it. The red bucket was still in the middle of the floor, dry for once because the rain had stopped. Then the pounding started.
Bam, bam, bam.
It wasn't a knock. It was someone hammering their fist against the wood. Avery, open this door. It was my father. His voice sounded hoarse. I looked at Grandma. She was sitting on my folding chair, her hands resting calmly on her cane. She nodded at me. Open it, she mouthed. I walked to the door. My hands were shaking a little, but not from fear, from adrenaline. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open. Daniel stood there. He looked terrible. He was wearing the same suit he had worn at the lawyer's office, but now it was wrinkled. His hair was messy. He looked like he hadn't slept in 2 days. My mother was standing behind him, shivering in a thin coat. She looked small and frightened. You! Daniel snarled when he saw me. He tried to push his way inside, but I blocked the doorway. What do you want? I asked. You poisoned her mind, he shouted. Spit flew from his mouth. You little witch. You played the poor, pathetic victim, and you stole everything from us. I didn't steal anything, I said. Calmly. I took back what was mine. It wasn't yours, he yelled. We built that life. We managed the money. You think you can just walk in and take the house? Take the accounts? You don't know the first thing about money. I know that you don't spend it on luxury cars when your daughter is starving, I said. He stepped forward, his face red with rage. He raised his hand, pointing a finger in my face. You ungrateful. Thud. Grandma's cane hit the floor hard. Daniel froze. He looked past me and saw her sitting in the shadows of the apartment. Mom, he whispered. Don't, Grandma said. She stood up and walked to the door. She stood beside me. She wasn't tall, but she felt like a giant. You come to her home, Grandma said, her voice low and dangerous. The home you forced her to live in. And you threatened her? She manipulated you. Daniel pleaded. She's lying. She's making it seem worse than it was. Look around you, Daniel. Grandma shouted. She swept her arm around the room. Look at the water stains. Look at the taped windows. Is this a lie? Is the mold on the wall a lie? He didn't look. He refused to look. You took everything from me first, I told him. I looked him right in the eyes. You took my confidence. You took my security. You let me believe I was worthless just so you could buy better wine. We were protecting you, he insisted, but the lie sounded weak now. You were protecting yourselves, I said. You were protecting your image. My mother stepped forward. She was crying. Real tears this time, I think. But they were tears of self-pity. Please, Avery, she sobbed. She reached out to touch my arm. I stepped back. We're family. Doesn't that mean anything? We're your parents. We made a mistake. Please talk to Grandma. Tell her to give us the allowance back. We have bills. The club membership is due, the car payments. I stared at her. Even now, begging in a basement, she was worried about her country club membership. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't apologize for the cold. She just wanted her money back. We were family, I said quietly, until you chose comfort over me. Avery, please, she wailed. No, I said. You don't deserve it. Daniel spat, his anger returning as he realized begging wouldn't work. You'll fail. You'll be back in the gutter in a year. She handled your neglect, Grandma said, stepping in front of me. She handled your silence. She handled your cruelty. And she is still standing. She is stronger than you will ever be. Grandma looked at them with total finality. Leave, she ordered. If you ever come near her again, I will strip you of the last thing you have, your name. I will publicly disown you in every newspaper in the country. Daniel looked at Grandma. Then he looked at me. He saw that the door was closed. Not just the physical door, but the door to our lives. He turned around and walked away. He didn't look back. My mother lingered for a second, looking at me with wide, tragic eyes, waiting for me to save her. When I didn't move, she turned and followed him into the gray afternoon. I watched them go. I watched them walk up the dirty concrete stairs. Then I closed the door. I locked it. I turned to Grandma. Are you okay? She asked. I took a deep breath. The air in the apartment still smelled like mold, but I didn't notice it as much. Yes, I said. I think I am. Good, she said. Finished packing. The movers are here. The drive to the lake house took 2 hours. We drove north, away from the city, into the mountains. The snow got deeper and whiter. The trees turned into thick pines covered in frost. I had seen pictures of Clearwater Bend, of course. It was where the wealthy went to escape, but I had never been there. We pulled up to the gate. I gave the guard my name. Welcome home, Miss Blake, he said.
Home.
The word sounded strange. We drove down the winding road until we reached the driveway. And there it was. The house was beautiful. It wasn't a mansion, not like my parents' gaudy house in the city. It was a large, modern cabin made of cedar and stone. It had huge glass windows that looked out over the frozen lake. It sat nestled in the trees, quiet and proud. My father had bought this with my money. My mother had decorated it with my future. I parked the car. Grandma and I got out. It was silent. No traffic. No sirens. Just the wind in the trees and the crunch of snow under our boots. I walked up the stone steps to the front door. I took the key Jonathan Hale had given me, out of my pocket. It was heavy and cold in my hand. I put the key in the lock. It turned smoothly. No jiggling required. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. It smelled like them. It smelled of my mother's expensive vanilla candles and my father's leather polish. For a second, I felt like an intruder. I felt like I was breaking in. Go on, Grandma said gently from behind me. It's yours. I walked in. The floors were polished hardwood. The ceilings were high with wooden beams. There was a massive stone fireplace in the center of the living room. The furniture was white and pristine. I walked through the rooms. The kitchen had marble countertops and appliances that looked like they had never been used. The dining room had a table that could seat 12 people. I walked into the master bedroom. It had a balcony overlooking the lake. I stood there looking at the bed. This is where they had slept. This is where they had woken up, drank their coffee, and looked at the view while I was taping my window shut. I felt a surge of anger. I wanted to smash things. I wanted to break the vases and rip the curtains. But then Grandma walked in. She went straight to the balcony doors and threw them open. Cold, fresh air rushed into the room. It swirled around us, chasing away the smell of vanilla and leather. It smelled like pine and snow and water. Let the air in, Grandma said. Let the old air out. I stood by the open door. I took a deep breath. The cold air stung my lungs, but it felt good. It felt clean. I don't know if I can live here, I admitted. It feels like theirs. It is only a building, Avery, Grandma said. A house is just wood and stone. You make it a home, change the furniture, paint the walls, burn the candles you like. It will forget them, and so will you. She was right. Over the next week, that is exactly what I did. I hired a team to remove the white furniture. I donated it all to a shelter. I bought comfortable couches, big, soft ones in dark blue velvet. I bought colorful rugs. I filled the kitchen with pots and pans that I actually used. I turned a guest room into a studio. I set up my easel. I bought paints, expensive oils, the kind I had always dreamed of using. One evening, about a week after I moved in, Grandma and I were sitting on the deck. We were wrapped in thick wool blankets, holding mugs of hot cocoa. It was snowing lightly, big fat flakes drifting down onto the frozen lake. It was so quiet. It's peaceful here, I said. Peace doesn't arrive loud, Grandma said, watching the snow. Drama is loud. Lies are loud. Peace arrives when the lies stop echoing. I looked at her. She looked younger than she had at Christmas. The stress was leaving her face.
Thank you, I said.
For saving me. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You saved yourself, Avery, she said. I just opened the door. You were the one who had the courage to walk through it. I looked out at the lake. The sun was setting, turning the ice pink and gold. For the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about tomorrow. I wasn't counting pennies in my head. I wasn't afraid of the cold. I was free. 6 months passed. The snow melted. The lake thawed, turning a deep, brilliant blue. The trees turned green. My life settled into a rhythm. I woke up when I wanted to. I drank coffee on the deck. I painted for hours. I took long walks in the woods. I didn't quit my job immediately, but I did quit the night shifts at the diner. I kept the receptionist job for a few weeks, just because I liked the routine, but eventually, I left that too. I wanted to focus on my art. The gossip in town was intense for a while. The story of the Blake family war made the local papers. People whispered when they saw me in the grocery store. But eventually, like all gossip, it faded. People found new things to talk about. My parents tried to appeal the changes to the trust, of course. They hired a cheap lawyer because they couldn't afford a good one. Jonathan Hale crushed them in court in less than an hour. The judge threw out their case and ordered them to pay legal fees. I heard they moved to a small condo in the suburbs. My father got a job as a consultant, but I heard he was struggling to keep clients. My mother started selling skincare products online. It was a long fall from the country club. One afternoon in June, a letter arrived in the mail. The envelope was pink. It was my mother's handwriting. I sat at my kitchen table, my table, made of reclaimed wood, covered in paint splatters, and stared at it. I debated throwing it in the trash. But curiosity is a funny thing. I opened it. Avery, I hope you're happy. We are struggling. Your father's blood pressure is high. We missed the summer gala this year. It is very hard for us. We forgive you for what you did. We are willing to put this behind us if you are. We are family after all. Maybe we could come up to the lake for a weekend? The city is so hot in July. Love, Mom. I read it twice. We forgive you. They forgave me. They still didn't get it. They still thought they were the victims. They still thought they could manipulate me with guilt. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt nothing. They were strangers to me now, just people I used to know. I stood up. I walked over to the fireplace. Even though it was summer, I had a small fire going because the nights were cool. I tossed the letter into the flames. I watched the pink paper curl and turn black. I watched the words, "We forgive you," turn into ash. I didn't reply. I never replied. I walked into my studio. The afternoon sun was spilling across the floor. My latest painting was on the easel, a large canvas of the lake in winter, stark and beautiful and strong. Grandma was coming to visit next week. We were planning to plant a garden in the back. Tomatoes, peppers, maybe some roses. I walked out onto the deck. The air was warm. A boat was crossing the lake in the distance, leaving a white wake behind it. I leaned against the railing. I closed my eyes and listened to the birds singing in the trees. I'm safe now, I whispered to the wind. And I was. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, but I had learned it well. Family isn't about blood. It isn't about appearances. And survival isn't about revenge. I didn't need to hurt my parents. I didn't need to destroy them. Their punishment was living with themselves. My victory was this house. My victory was my peace. My victory was reclaiming my name, my voice, and my life. I opened my eyes. The lake was shining. The future was wide open. And for the first time, it belonged to me.